Hello guys, I am Jashwant. Today we are going to walk through the hacker methodology room from TryHackMe. Task 1, Methodology Outline. What process does a hacker follow? While you might think that a hacker does whatever he or she wants, it is actually true that professional hackers or pen testers generally follow an established process to understand and exploit their targets. This ensures that there is consistency between how assessments are performed throughout the industry and is the methodology that drives assessments. The process that pen testers follow is summarized in the following steps: reconnaissance, enumeration, gaining access, privilege escalation, covering tracks, reporting. In the next section, we will go through each aspect of this process in more detail. What is the first phase of hacker methodology? Reconnaissance. Reconnaissance overview. The first phase of ethical hacking methodology is reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is all about collecting information about your target. Generally speaking, reconnaissance usually involves no interaction with the target or systems. Reconnaissance is a pretty simple concept. Think about what tools we can use on the internet to gather information about people. What websites and technologies come to mind to gather information about a target organization, technology, or set of individuals? In this case, let's use the company SpaceX. Stop here and take 2 minutes to do some research on SpaceX and note down any websites you use to conduct research. So first, we are going to use Google, which is one of the most useful tool. Google is an incredibly useful tool, and there is an entire room, Google Dorking room, to use it effectively to conduct research. So Google Dorking is a process of adding additional parameters to reduce the search results and to make searches efficiently. We might have also used websites such as Wikipedia to understand the history of SpaceX, using the company's Twitter or YouTube handle to see their latest news releases, or even LinkedIn profile to research company's open position or the company's organizational structure. The cool thing is all of these are very simple tools and are valid reconnaissance tools. You might think hackers use special tools to conduct research, and in some cases that is true, but overall they use simple tools like these to conduct research. Reconnaissance usually involves publicly available tools like Google to conduct research about your target. Even though it may seem simple, reconnaissance is the single most important phase of the penetration test, because here in this stage we are going to know many details about the target, so that it would be very useful for us to start enumerating at, at, at the next stage. There are some specialized tools that we can utilize, but for this introduction it is good to know the following tools: Google, especially Google Dorking, Wikipedia, peoplefinder.com, who.is, Sublister, hunter.io, builtwith.com, Vapalizer. Who is the CEO of SpaceX? It is Elon Musk. Do some research into the tool Sublister. What does it list? So Sublister is a tool that when given a home domain or a home URL of a domain, it will try to enumerate all of the subdomains that may be active. So it lists all the subdomains of a top level domain. What is it called when you use Google to look for specific vulnerabilities or to research a specific topic of interest? It is called Google Dorking. Next task 3, enumeration and scanning overview. The second phase of hacker methodology is scanning and enumeration. This is where a hacker will start interacting with the target to attempt to find vulnerabilities related to the target. This is where more specialized tools start to come into the arsenal. Tools like Nmap, DIRB, Metasploit, ExploitDB, burpsuit, and others are very useful to help us try to find vulnerabilities in a target. In the scanning and enumeration phase, the attacker is interacting with the target to determine its overall attack surface. The attack surface determines what the target might be vulnerable to the exploitation phase. These vulnerabilities might be a range of things, anything from a web page not being properly locked down, a web page leaking information, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or any number of other vulnerabilities. To simplify, the enumeration and scanning phase is where we will try to determine what the target might be vulnerable to. For example, one important tool in our arsenal is a tool called Nmap. I recommend checking out Nmap room after we complete this room. So Nmap is a tool which can scan a target and tell us very wide variety of things, such as what ports are open in the target, the operating system of the target, what services are running, and what version of those services are running in the target. This helps us to determine the exact versions of the services and also helps us to find a specific vulnerability related to that specific version of the service. Although they may sound like a lot of information and enough to pawn anyone and anything, but there are other tools that will also be used in the reconnaissance arsenal. Here is a quick sampling of other tools that you can learn on TryHackMe platform. DIRB. DIRB is also a tool which helps in listing subdomains. DIRBuster. DIRBuster is similar tool. DIRBuster, similar to DIRB, it has a user interface. Enum for Linux. Enum for Linux is a tool especially used for Linux to find vulnerabilities. Metasploit. This tool is mostly used for exploitation, but it also has some built-in enumeration tools. Burpsuit. This tool can be used to scan websites for subdirectories and to intercept network traffic. What does enumeration help to determine about the target? What does enumeration help to determine about the target? So enumeration can help us let's check the hint. And hint is 2 words. Very good. So used to find vulnerabilities. Attack surface. Do some reconnaissance about the tool Metasploit. What company developed it? So we can do a simple Google search about Metasploit. Metasploit is acquired by Rapid 7. So maybe Rapid 7 will be the answer. Yes. What company developed the technology behind the tool Burp Suite? We are again going to do a simple Google search. Figure. Okay, now let's start task 4, exploitation. Now that we have talked about the other three phases of the pen test, it is time to talk about the one that is often portrayed as the coolest. In the news, they often talk about this hack or this vulnerability, but the truth is that usually the exploitation phase of a pen test is not as glamorous as it seems. The exploitation phase can only be as good as the recon and enumeration phases before it. If you did not enumerate all vulnerabilities, you may miss an opportunity, or if you did not look hard enough at the target, the exploit you have chosen may fail entirely. One common one common tool used for exploitation is called Metasploit, which has many built-in scripts to try to keep life simple. You can also use tools like Burpsuit and SQL Map to exploit web applications. There are tools such as MSF Venom for building custom payloads, or Beef browser-based exploitation, and many others. For now, I think we have a good grasp on what exploitation means. Just remember, a professional pen tester never jumps into the exploitation phase without doing adequate reconnaissance and enumeration. What okay. What is one of the primary exploitation tools that pen testers use? It is Metasploit. Next, the task 5, privilege escalation. After we have gained access to a victim machine via the exploitation phase, the next step is to escalate privileges to a higher user account. The following accounts are what we are trying to reach as a pen tester. In the Windows world, the target account is usually administrator or system. In the Linux world, the target account is usually root. As you can tell, discovering what operating system a device is running on is very important to determine how we will escalate our privileges later. Once we gain access as a lower level user, we will try to run another exploit or find a way to become root or administrator. Privilege escalation can take many forms. Some examples are cracking password hashes found on the target, or finding a vulnerable service or version of a service which allow you to escalate privileges through the service, and password spraying of previously discovered credentials. This can be useful if the target is using same passwords at, with different tools. Using default credentials. Some services may not change their default credentials to some of the services they provide. Using default credentials may sometimes give access to those services. Finding secret keys or SSH keys stored on a device which will allow pivoting to another machine. Running scripts or commands to enumerate system settings like ifconfig to find network settings, or the command find slash hyphen perm hyphen 400 hyphen type f2 greater than hyphen dev hyphen null. to see if the user has access to any commands they can run as root. By executing the above command, we can see if there are any commands a user or owner can execute as a root. There are These are just some examples of how privilege escalation could work, and there are many more ways in which a privilege escalation could take place. Just think of this section as a methodology as getting to a higher level user account or pivoting to another machine with the ultimate goal to own the machine. In Windows, okay, let's answer the questions. In Windows, what is usually the other target account beside administration? Beside administration, it is system. What things related to SSH could you allow to log into another machine even without knowing the username and password? So SSH keys. Okay, let's move on to task number 6, covering tracks. Most professional ethical pentesters never have heard the need to cover their tracks. However, this is still a phase in the methodology. You should always have explicit permission from the system owner regarding when the test is happening, how it is occurring, and the scope of the targets in any penetration test. The, the ethical hackers or professional penetration testers will take the permission of the target so that in the presence or in the acceptance of the target they are going to test their systems. So an red hat hacker or an unethical hacker may need to cover their tracks, but the professional or ethical hackers need not to cover their tracks unless specified, because they already have the permission to enter into the system. Since the rules of engagement for a penetration test should be agreed to before the test occurs, the penetration testers should stop immediately when they have achieved privilege escalation and report the finding to the client. As such, a professional will never cover their tracks because the assessment was planned to and agreed to beforehand. Although there are multiple tools for covering tracks, I will not talk about them in this room. If you are truly curious, you may research them yourself. However, even though you do not cover your tracks, this does not absolve you of liability for your exploitation. Often you will need to often you will need to assist the IT administrator or system owner in cleaning up the exploit code that you have utilized, and also recommending how to prevent the attack in the future. While ethical hackers rarely have a need to cover their tracks, you still must carefully track and notate all of the tasks that you have performed as the part of penetration test to assist in fixing the vulnerabilities and recommending changes to the system owner. Okay. Task 7, reporting. The final phase of the pen test methodology is the reporting phase. This is one of the most important phases where you will outline everything that you have found. The reporting phase often includes the following things: the findings or the vulnerabilities, the criticality of the findings, a description or brief overview of how the finding was discovered, remediation recommendations to resolve the findings. The amount of reporting documentation varies widely by the use of engagement by the type of engagement that the pen tester is involved in. A findings report generally goes in three formats: vulnerability scan results, a simple list of vulnerabilities; findings summary, list of the findings as outlined above; full format report. As stated before, there are many varying levels of documentation for a final report. Here is how each type of reporting would look like in practice. So we can see the scan information, start time, finish time, scan time, and profile. The server information, how did the server respond, the server banner, the server OS, okay, and the threat level, and also the alerts that they have received when they are exploiting the system. Okay, a vulnerability report usually looks like this. A findings summary is usually something like this. Finding: SQL injection in ID parameter of cat's page. Criticality: critical. Description: placing a payload of one quotation or in quotation 1 equal to quotation 1. This is an SQL injection method which uses boolean arguments to escalate into the database. So placing this payload in the ID parameter will help us to bypass the password requirement of the website. And furthermore, a union select SQL statement allowed the attacker to view all usernames and passwords stored in the accounts table. So it is a critical vulnerability. Remediation recommendation: utilize a prepared SQL statement to prevent SQL attacks. So rather than directly accepting the HTML inputs into the SQL query, we have to place placeholders so that only the data can be used as a placeholder rather than directly accepting the HTML inputs. A full format report sample can be found in this GitHub repository. Okay, now let's answer the questions. What would be the type of reporting that involves a full documentation of all the findings within a formal document? Full format report. Full format report. Let's see what would be the type of reporting that involves a full documentation of all findings within a formal document. Of all findings within a formal document. All the findings. So it is not a full formal report. Let me try again. Full formal report. Okay. Next, what is the other thing that a pen tester should provide in a report beyond the finding name, the finding description, the finding criticality? So the finding name, the finding description, the finding name, the finding description, the criticality, the remediation recommendation. Okay, let me copy this. Remediation recommendation. Yes, that is the correct answer. This is the hacker methodology room. Thank you for watching the walkthrough.